Recently, the Gaming Rift has decided to say that Sonic and Shadow are not equals in the Sonic the Hedgehog universe, which is gone against by literally everybody in the single known universe, from the characters inverse to the writers themselves, so I wanted to see his evidence for that, and if he actually has a point.
Hey guys, it's Rift here, and today we're going to be debunking a misconception within the Sonic series, that being the idea that Sonic and Shadow are perfect equals. This is something that fans have been saying for years, and the developers of the games have even been saying it, but if you look at the games themselves, you can see it clearly isn't true. So starting
a consistent plot hole when Shadow is unable to do things that Sonic can, and vice versa, unless there's actually something meaningfully different about the world that changes that, such as Black Doom literally corrupting the air, making everybody unable to move. It should be seen as an actual criticism, and should actually be used as a criticism if Sonic does not get defeated by the same thing Shadow does, and vice versa. But using the fact that Shadow isn't there to make a statement is actually bad faith. It is genuinely bad faith. Hopefully he only uses moments where Shadow actually appears in the story meaningfully.
Putting things back in Sonic Adventure 2 where it all began, we have Shadow stating that he is the ultimate life form, and this already on its own causes a problem. Since if Shadow truly was the ultimate life form, based off the many interpretations of the term ultimate, then this would imply that Shadow is objectively more powerful than Sonic. However, Shadow cannot be the ultimate.
Shadow is called the ultimate life form, not because of his power or his speed. He's supposed to be the ultimate life form because he's immune to all illnesses. He can cure others of their illnesses, which he failed at in the case of Maria. For some reason, they decided that making him able to cure all the illnesses means he can't cure NIDS, which is fucking hilarious. I'm just saying, dude, that's fucking funny. Imagine being created to cure all illnesses, and then your only thing that gives you the title of ultimate life form is the only thing you fail at. Is crazy. I would genuinely just leave all that stuff alone after Maria dies, but Shadow had to keep going. He had to keep going. He had to keep the big ego. Let's be real. He shouldn't have done that. He should have gotten rid of it. Dude, it's weird. There's more details you can go into with Shadow's abilities, but if we're meant to assume Sonic and Shadow are equals, a statement about Sonic can also apply to Shadow. Not in all cases, but if Sonic were to fight Infinite at the time that Infinite went against Shadow, we can assume that he would have lost because they're meant to be equals.
But life form when we take a look at their encounters with Sonic in the game. In their first encounter, Shadow has a massive advantage over Sonic due to the Chaos Control technique, something which Sonic himself even comments on. It's not that Shadow is more powerful, it's the fact that he has an ability that Sonic has no counter for at this point in time. In their rematch, the two hedgehogs appear to stalemate, and we don't see how that fight would play out since it's inconclusive, as they both have to get off the island before it explodes. In their final rematch aboard the Space Colony Ark, it's pretty obvious that Sonic himself triumphs over Shadow, and here's why. Sonic's overall objective is to use the fake Chaos Emerald to prevent the Eclipse Cannon from firing, and Shadow's objective is to stop Sonic from reaching the Eclipse Cannon at all costs. We clearly see that Eggman has all 7 of the real emeralds placed in the Eclipse Cannon and is ready to fire, however a danger message appears on the screen. And this is because Sonic, at the end of the hero story, succeeded at reaching the Space Colony Ark, and using the fake Chaos Emerald he was able to cause the thing to blow up. And we know that this had to have happened because the fake Chaos Emerald doesn't show up in the final story of the game. If Sonic still had the fake Chaos Emerald, he'd be able to use it to fast travel to the cannon's
Sonic never uses long distance chaos control after the event of him almost dying in the space pod. We can usually just assume that Sonic is not confident enough to use the Chaos Emerald in a way that he won't pass out in, right? So he passes out immediately after getting out of the ship, and he lands on the floor. Knuckles comes over to check up on him, and he gets up after a couple of seconds, and he goes away. Now, we do not actually know how consistently he used Chaos Control during his fight with Shadow. We have no idea whatsoever. We can either assume he only ever used it once to used it 999 times. So, using that as a actual thing thing to say that Sonic didn't make it there quickly enough is not a good excuse. You're going to have to find a better argument for that. Sonic also has reason to think that the battle is over and nothing else happens, and none of the actual gameplay components that lead to the final story taking place happens until Sonic enters the room. Why would Sonic ever teleport if he doesn't need to? Also, Sonic is a big proponent of not being efficient. Sometimes he will just do things just for style, and he won't do anything that has actual substance. And I wish that would come back more often, because that's actually a character flaw that you can actually touch on, but you don't actually have to improve, because everybody likes the rule of core more than they like consistency, let's be real.
Core, but this is never brought up or established, with the overall plan being to head to the cannon's core on foot and use the Master Emerald to stop the Eclipse Cannon. But wait, I hear you say, if Sonic truly did destroy and deactivate the Eclipse Cannon with the fake Chaos Emerald in Sonic Adventure 2, then how was the Eclipse Cannon operational in Shadow the Hedgehog? How did Team Chaotix use the thing to destroy the Black Comet? Well, there isn't a definitive answer as to how this happened, but there are quite a few theories within the series. Tails and Eggman could have rebuilt it, Gun could have rebuilt it, Black Doom could have obtained the schematics and helped rebuild it, the Chaos Emeralds could have repaired it, or the Chaotix themselves could have repaired it. There's quite a lot of possibilities, but unfortunately we'll never know for certain.
With the facts that we now have, we know two things for certain. Both the emerald that was used to destroy the Eclipse Cannon survived, and the Eclipse Cannon survived. And with no other alternatives that actually make any sense, it's enough to assume that there was actually a pressure meter. What do I mean by a pressure meter? The Bio-Lizard had a set amount of damage that the Eclipse Cannon had to attain before it decided that it wasn't working anymore and it was going to release the Bio-Lizard. Imagine it like this. A arc cannon has a damage level it could take that's about 20%. If it gets to that 20%, then the Chaos Cannon stops working and the Bio-Lizard releases. Based on the information we have right now, this is the most plausible explanation for what's going on with the Eclipse Cannon and the fake Emerald. Remember, from a lore perspective, this would make sense. From a storytelling perspective, this is definitely a retcon. But what we care about most is the lore and the internal logic of how it works.
However, it's the absence of the fake Chaos Emerald that really makes me believe the hero story is canon, since neither Sonic or Shadow have possession of it in the final battle, with the fake Chaos Emerald being seemingly forgotten about until Shadow Generations. However, its presence in Shadow Generations causes a plot hole within the series, since Tails states that when the fake Chaos Emerald comes into contact with the Space Colony Ark, it will reverse its energy yield and then blow up. The only plausible explanation is that Tails created multiple fake Chaos Emeralds, which is possible since they did something similar in Sonic X. Unfortunately, this is never established within the series, and it's most likely a plot hole and a problem with Shadow Generations writing.
Actually, this is just the standard writing trope is, if you don't see something happen, it probably didn't happen. Every moment has to be shown to you for the story to make sense. And that's kind of the rule that Ian Flynn kind of goes by. Just trust me, we will get to a point where a lot of things that look like plot holes are just going to be things that weren't elaborated on in the actual game. I can't wait till we get to stuff like Chip. Oh, Chip went back into his dormant hibernation space. True, he did. But actually, 200 years is actually going to happen in 10 weeks from now. So he actually woke up Dark Gaia twice in a year,
as it contradicts the events of Sonic Adventure 2. As a result of all this evidence, I believe without a shadow of a doubt, no pun intended, that Sonic had to have triumphed over Shadow in their final battle, with it being as fair of a fight as you can get. However, we're not done with Adventure.
Yes, he did win. He definitely did win. But one, we don't know how close that fight was. And two, Shadow doesn't actually have to care on whether the blast gets knocked on course. Why would Shadow care about that at all? He knows about the plan to send everything on the ship towards the Ark. He knows about that. Or he should know about that, otherwise it's a major plot hole. But Shadow should not be trying 100% in that battle, because no matter if he wins by getting thrown into the planet or whether he wins by completely blowing it up, Shadow still wins. There's no point in him caring.
Two, since in the final story there are two pieces of damning evidence that once again proves that not only are they not equals, but possibly Sonic is above Shadow at this point in the story. The first piece of evidence is a line from Shadow during the final boss, which suggests that Sonic himself is actually the ultimate life form. And this actually isn't too far-fetched, since in the final cutscene of the game, we see Super Sonic and Super Shadow use Chaos Control to transport the Space Colony Ark away from the Earth. Both hedgehogs were at the epicenter of the blast, yet Super Sonic survives and Super Shadow is believed to have been killed by the other characters. Made all the more impressive by the fact that this is Sonic's first time using Chaos Control with a real Chaos Emerald. And as a result of all of this, even in Sonic Adventure 2, the game that literally debuted Shadow, Sonic was already significantly above Shadow in stats, with him winning a fair 1v1, and him having a more impressive performance in the final battle of the game.
So I've had this theory for a long time that chaos energy is like a skill tree, and Shadow had put a lot of his points into using and understanding chaos control, while Sonic had never used chaos control and had been using his super form for most of his life. So if they have been putting their energy into different stats, and Sonic passed out after using his chaos control, that means that Shadow would have always passed out after using his super form for the first time, especially after going long time without ever knowing about it or using it ever. I understand that this video wasn't very edited, but this is just because I wanted to explain to you lore in a down-to-earth format or create new theories in your head for you to think about. You know, Sonic is kind of like that one odd man out where most of the bigger ideas or the bigger things inside the fandom are things that make absolutely no sense and make you want to die when you hear about them. But stuff like this is down to earth and it makes a lot more sense on why a person could think this. So yeah, have a great day, like, sub, comment, thanks.